Welcome back, everybody. So this week we are not going to be reviewing any movies because nothing came out this week that I really liked or wanted to see, and the stuff I did see I didn't really like. So instead, today we're going to be counting down the 10 best Batman actors of all time. Now, obviously, the reason we're going to be doing this week is because it's something of a timely subject. Because, as I'm sure many of you are aware, Variety, I think it was, might have been Deadline, I don't remember, reported that Robert Pattinson, star of Claire Denis' High Life, star of David Cronenberg's Cosmopolis and Twilight, is going to be playing Batman in Matt Reeves' new The Batman film, set to come out a couple of years from now, or whatever. The news went really viral very quickly because, obviously, an actor who was in the Twilight movies that a lot of people hate for, no reason. I mean, they hate the Twilight movies for good reason, but they hate Robert Pattinson for no good reason. Anyway, a lot of those people were very frustrated that he was cast as Batman, and the news spread far and wide, as it would. But he's not fully 100% confirmed to play Batman. It appears the report was amended later to say that the two frontrunners for the Matt Reeves Batman reboot are Robert Pattinson and also Nicholas Hoult from Skins and Mad Max Fury Road and the later X-Men movies. I think we can pretty much all agree that Nicholas Hoult is not as good as Robert Pattinson, so we're going to move forward pretending that Robert Pattinson is going to get the role, because if he doesn't, that's an injustice. I think that Robert Pattinson is going to be a fucking incredible Batman. It's obvious that if he is going to get this role, he's only doing it to get enough studio clout to get some of the artier movies he wants to get made. If he does this movie, he'll probably keep his agent very happy, and he'll be able to have sort of, renewed star power to get the kind of projects he cares about actually made. He's also going to be the new Christopher Nolan movie, so he seems to be making Warner Brothers very happy at the moment. Anyway, I thought it'd be a good time to discuss every other actor who's ever played Batman and rank them, because people like rankings, and talk about my own personal feelings about them, because the ranking is made by me, because it's not scientific, because it's an opinion thing. And we'll just kind of go from there. This is going to be a top 10 of all the actors who have ever played Batman in popular media. Obviously, more than 10 people have played Batman over the course of the history of Batman, but I'm not going to rank all of them because some of them I just don't give a shit about. I will make a short list of honorable mentions, and then we'll go into the top 10 for realsies. But before we do the honorable mentions or the top 10, I do want to talk about one person who made neither, and that person is George Clooney. I want to go on record as saying that I like George Clooney quite a bit as an actor. He's a pretty solid director, cool producer, seems like a nice guy. But he's unequivocally the worst Batman there's ever been, ever. And it's not really his fault. I don't even feel like it's fair to blame Joel Schumacher for it either. It's just that Clooney is someone who you would think would make a great Bruce Wayne, and he was moderately entertaining in the Bruce Wayne scenes of Batman and Robin. But beyond that, he just doesn't have, he's too... George Clooney is entirely too self-aware as a movie star. He's supposed to be this throwback Golden Age style 1940s movie star, but the thing that makes him unlike all of the people he's always compared to is that, he's a modern person. He's a very modern performer. And anytime you're looking at him, there's always this hint of winking, It's really great for a movie like Steven Soderbergh's The Good German, which is this weird self-reflexive look at Golden Age filmmaking, and all the Coen Brothers movies that do kind of similar things. He's great for that because he looks and feels like an old school movie star, but he's too neurotic and weird and self-aware to really be one. I think that's why he wasn't a very good Batman, is that he'd be an interesting Batman in a very specific kind of story. But Batman and Robin just wasn't that story. Joel Schumacher wanted to make a fun sort of camp Batman who no longer mourned the death of his parents and was just being Batman for kicks, I guess, and fell in love and stuff. And Clooney just kind of acted like himself, and it was just weird. It wasn't funny enough to really be camp, and he didn't play parts of it straight enough for it to be believable. He just sucked, and he knows he sucked, and he's done great things since and prior, so who cares? But he's the only person I can 100% write off as being the worst Batman. Also, Jason O'Mara, the guy that voices Batman on a lot of the newer DC animated projects, the straight-to-home video movies and stuff, that guy also sucks. He's 1A of sucking as Batman next to Clooney. Also pretty terrible. So, with those two losers out of the way, let's move on to the honorable mentions of the top 10 best Batmans ever. So the 5 people that, like, I guess could have been ranked in the top 10, but I just didn't think were necessary were Stephen Amell as the CW Arrow, which we all know is basically just the TV budget ripoff version of Batman. I just don't care for him very much, so he didn't make it on. The kid from Gotham, I stopped watching Gotham in the first season, so if at some later point that kid grew up and hit puberty and put on a costume, I don't care, and I'm not going to go back and find out, so honorable mentions. The 2, like, dopes who played him in the 1940s, like, black and white serials, I'm not even committing their names to memory, but they're these 2, like, kind of flubby dudes who both played Batman before Batman was, like, even kind of what we believe Batman to be now. So, I remember watching the serials when I was a kid, because I love Batman and could never get enough of it, and even as a child, I was like, this is dumb, who cares? This one was kind of a hard one to leave out. The super jacked guy from that 8-minute short film Batman Dead End, where the guy looked exactly like an Alex Ross painting of Batman, and at the very end he ran into like Alien and the Predator. It's like a fan film, so I guess it doesn't count for most people, but that guy looked a lot like Batman. I don't think he had any dialogue, but he was like hot, so... Finally, the last honorable mention, the person that comes closest to actually getting into the top 10. I left him here in the honorable mention category, mostly in a technicality. That person's Jaden Smith, and the technicality is that he's never actually played Batman. But if you guys remember, he walked around in public wearing a white Batman costume a lot, and then he made that music video where he did the same. And I sort of feel like he's like... I mean, I feel like as far as I'm concerned, Jaden Smith is a canonical Batman. He's like a rich, weird kid. His parents are, like, famous. They didn't die, though. I mean, so that's kind of a problem. But he's, like, weird and brooding and kind of does his own thing and walks around in a Batman costume sometimes. He doesn't technically fight crime, but, like, he makes his own, like, bottled water that seems pretty, like, sustainable and, like, healthy for, like, the community and stuff. I just like Jaden Smith. Alright, so now we're getting into the top 10 proper. Number 10, it's going to be Peter Weller, who voiced Batman in the 2 straight-to-video, well, I guess they were released theatrically too, the Dark Knight Returns adaptations that Warner Brothers put out. Peter Weller's performance as Batman to me is really fascinating because it starts off kind of shitty and then slowly gets, like, epic and legendary, and the reason is because he's playing the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns Batman, who starts off being like this shell of himself and then slowly remembers that he's like fucking Batman and then like rides around in a tank and beats up mutants and stuff. And the main reason why I like Peter Weller's performance is it's like the horniest Batman performance like ever. I know that people have their different like opinions about whether or not Batman fucks, but like Peter Weller Batman is just like a weird senile dude who like takes like philosophical Viagra and then just starts, like, fucking the city again. And every scene, Peter Weller is delivering every line like a dude who, like, is horned up about fighting crime. And I think it's such an accurate and honest portrayal of the Frank Miller Batman that, like, so many people always get the part where like, the Frank Miller version of Batman is, like, tough and, like, yelling and you know, gritty. But they miss the part where he's, like, kind of goofy and kind of ridiculous and, like, clearly just, like, a horny weirdo. So, props to Peter Weller for giving the best, like, non-RoboCop, non-Naked Lunch performance of his career as an animated version of Batman. Number 9 is another animated Batman. I'm sorry, the animated Batmans count. It's going to be Bruce Greenwood, who voices Batman in a couple of different animated movies and also primarily the Young Justice series that is currently airing on the DC Universe app. I love Bruce Greenwood Batman because he's like the best of like the dad Batman. He really captures the part of Batman who's just like a sad, lonely guy who like takes care of a bunch of kids and like really loves those kids. Because I feel like every episode of Young Justice, from the beginning of the show onward, is Batman showing up and like giving all these kids like a big lecture where he sounds kind of like a judge on like a cooking competition, like he's gonna ream you and send you home, and then at the very end he like pulls it back and is like, "Good job, kids, I'm really proud of you." And I don't know, I like that. I like that stuff. I think it's like adorable that like Bruce Greenwood plays this Batman who's like gruff and shitty and wants to fight people and like his teammates barely trust him, but he loves these fucking kids. He loves these young superheroes and knows they're trying to do the right thing, and he always tries to support them. And I don't know, it's entertaining. He does kind of come off like Gordon Ramsay when Gordon Ramsay's on those kids' version of his cooking shows. And that sounds odd, but I think it's sort of a quality I like in Batman. Number 8. This is probably going to be controversial for some of you. Number 8 for me is Christian Bale of the Christopher Nolan Bat trilogy films. I like Christian Bale as an actor in plenty of movies. Big Christian Bale fan. I like him as Batman. I think he's a pretty good Batman. I just don't love him as Batman. And I mean, I think that he's probably the only person who could have played the role for the Christopher Nolan interpretation of the character. I think he had great chemistry with all of the cast, and, you know, especially with Michael Caine. And I think that he's really good. I just don't consider him like best Batman status. Obviously not even like top 5 Batman status. His Batman, to me, wasn't something I ever really connected to very strongly. I think his Batman films are awesome. I love Batman Begins. Dark Knight's pretty damn good still. Really not a big Dark Knight Rises fan, but like whatever. You know, I it's hard because I think he did a fantastic job. He defined Batman for a whole generation, and he's like not like my Batman, you know? Like a lot of these Batmen on this list are like my Batman, and he's just not mine. I don't feel that same connection to him. I don't miss him as Batman. I'm totally fine with him never doing anything with the character again. You know, didn't dislike him, but just didn't feel that strongly, you know? And I gotta be honest, I'm not gonna make a list and like lie and put him higher so that like people will think I'm cool or whatever. Like you know, that's just my feelings on Bale Batman. Number 7, I only rank this slightly higher than Christian Bale. That's going to be Will Arnett as the Lego Batman. This is primarily because of how hardcore my love of the Lego Batman movie is. Not so much Lego Batman in the other 2 Lego movies, but like specifically that movie. It's such a unique and interesting like exploration of the Batman mythology as a whole. And I think that Will Arnett doesn't get quite enough credit for how he synthesizes so many different disparate elements of what we know and love about Batman into like this one caricature, so that he's really goofy and funny and like does lots of things that are easy to laugh at, but he still functions for the parts of that movie that require you to have emotions and feelings. Like, he's not so much of a caricature that you just laugh, and when they get serious you don't take it seriously. He pushes all these things together in a really unique way. And it's something I think one that's good at. I mean, it's why people love him on like BoJack Horseman, you know? And I kind of wish he was able to tap into that more in like his live action roles. But maybe it's just because his voice is so mutable that he's only able to do it in animation. But yeah, I think his Batman performance is really underrated. He's played Batman technically as many times as Christian Bale has, so they're kind of on even footing there. It's fucking stupid, I guess, but I like it. I like what he does in that specific movie. I'm not as much of a fan of his work in the Lego movies, where he's more like a side character who's a joke. So like it is just sort of the one note joke of like, ooh, Batman, and he likes heavy metal or whatever. But I thought he showed a lot of depth and range in the Lego Batman movie. And yeah, so that's why he's here at number 7. Number 6 is yet another animated Batman. That's Diedrich Bader from the Brave and the Bold animated series. Love Diedrich Bader as Batman because he's so similar in many ways to another Batman who's going to be next on this list, we'll get to in a few minutes, who... I think that Diedrich Bader's Batman is so interesting because he captures a lot of the fun and flair of the Silver Age Batman era, but with, like, it's not quite winking, like, it's definitely, there's a self-awareness to it, but with, like, a sincerity. It's kind of like sending up those old stories, and it keeps the same kind of, like, laugh factor and kind of goofiness and absurdity, but not in a way that, like, diminishes it or cruelly comments on it or like makes it seem like it's just a goofy bullshit thing. Like the Diedrich Bader Batman in the Brave and the Bold animated series feels like Batman. Like there's a straightforwardness to him. He's still like curt and still like tough, but he's like lovable and like fun. Like it's the kind of Batman you'd want to give to kids, not like a Batman that's like a shitty watered down version of Batman because you think kids couldn't handle it or something. You know, his Batman is just so sweet and like corny a little bit and like fun and goofy, and he's just a delight. There's so many episodes of the Brave and the Bold series that are like a full blast, just super, super fun cartoon interpretation of Batman. And I don't know, like he's definitely, one of the ways I kind of tend to judge Batman is like, how often will I read a Batman comic and hear this person's voice as that Batman? And Diedrich Bader pops up a lot more than you'd think. Sometimes I'm reading a book and I'm like, that could be Bader. I could dig it. So that's why he's here at number 6. We're in the top 5 now, and we got to talk about an absolute legend of the Batman game. One who maybe should be a little bit higher, but again, since this is like my personal preference, he's right here. It's fucking Adam West. Rest in peace to the god. I think Adam West is an immensely talented Batman. And I know that maybe some people look back at the Adam West Batman series as like making Batman too goofy for too long, and it made it so hard for people to take him seriously again. But fuck all that. Adam West Batman is like a delight. I'm so grateful that Adam West and Burt Ward got to do those couple of like animated movies like right before he passed, so they could kind of revisit those characters and like that style and that tone. Adam West is just incredible. The presence, he's iconic. Defined Batman for like a very, very large group of people, and he's just kind of great, you know. Like he's very much that Silver Age Batman. He's serious and straightforward, but the goofy stuff fits in. Doesn't seem that weird. He's believable. He's likable. He's impressive. I don't quite think I realized how much I personally liked Adam West Batman until I watched those two animated movies that Burt Ward did recently, right before he passed, the one with Two-Face and the other one. Because there's a bit in one of them where he's like under like mind control or something. I don't remember. But there's a bit where he's essentially doing like the Frank Miller Batman, but it's like Adam West doing it, like kind of like mocking it, sending up a little. And just hearing him do it, knowing how vastly different it is from his actual interpretation of the character, and seeing how good he was at it, it just really made me realize, like, oh, I fucking love Adam West, dude. Like, that guy was so great. It's weird to me that, like, a whole generation of kids are only going to know him as, like a Family Guy parody version of himself. But the man was a legend, and his Batman matters. I don't think you can really acknowledge the myriad things that we all love about Batman without including Adam West. So that's why he made it in the top 5. Number 4 is one of my personal favorite Batman. Unsurprisingly, it's also Bob Kane's favorite Batman. It's Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer's pretty high on this list for a number of reasons. Reason one is that I love Val Kilmer, and I would take a bullet for Val Kilmer if I ended up in some kind of weird scenario where that was something I had to do to save his life. I think he's one of the great unsung actors of his generation. I think he's just a really cool guy. I like him in pretty much everything he's ever made. And I think his Batman doesn't get a fair shake. I kind of feel like Val Kilmer's Batman is like this real outlier. He's in Batman Forever, so he's already a part of the Joel Schumacher, like, you know, tight ass shot Batman that people kind of don't take seriously. But his performance in the movie is like really good. He is just campy enough to fit into like the big weird gay allegory Batman that Joel Schumacher created, which I also think is heavily underrated. But he doesn't like ham it up necessarily. Like Val Kilmer is weird in a way that he seems like Batman. You know, not enough people that play Batman get the fact that he's like a weirdo. I don't think he would be like this hot, believable playboy. I think he'd be a fucking oddball, and no one would ever really think he was Batman because they don't really believe that he's a guy who can, like, you know, properly put his pants on by himself in the morning. He's just strange and broken and rich. And Val Kilmer is like this really good-looking guy. He has this great, captivating presence. But the way other characters in this movie treat him when he's Bruce Wayne is like fuck that guy. You know what I mean? Like, Dr. Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman, is like clearly attracted to and turned on by Batman and like wants to get to know Batman. But when she's left alone in her Bruce Wayne, she's just like, what a fucking geek. Like, what a loser. And I don't know. It's weird seeing sort of a Clark Kent version of the Bruce Wayne persona. You know what I mean? Where like Val's Bruce Wayne is so unassuming that no one even pays any mind to him. But like, I really liked it. It's a cool departure, I guess, from the way other people play that part. Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne is really great as being like this big, you know, mask that he wears to people. That whole like, oh, Bruce Wayne's the mask, the real Batman is Batman or whatever. But I like that Val Kilmer plays him as just like an odd guy who like doesn't sleep and is like fucked up and wears silk pajamas all the time and stuff like that. I don't know. Val Kilmer's Batman, to me, I think that if he had ever gotten like a shot to play Batman with a different filmmaker or like a slightly different story, I think he would be way more iconic to people than he is now. Just underrated, man. Like, he's so good. Speaking of underrated, number 3, this might ruffle some feathers. It might not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overestimating how little people care. But Ben Affleck is number 3, guys. Ben Affleck, who played Batman in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice and Justice League. And I guess that one scene at the end of Suicide Squad. Ben Affleck's my number 3. I think Ben Affleck is really, really severely underrated as Batman. Primarily because he's playing a very unique interpretation of the character. You can say what you want about Zack Snyder or the DCEU franchises and stuff, but like, this Batman, it was always talked about as being like, oh, Zack Snyder's going to bring the Dark Knight Returns Batman into the live action. That's not really what this is, okay? And that's why I think it's so unique. We've never really had a Batman who was as old as Ben Affleck's Batman is, but not like Clint Eastwood, Sylvester Stallone, Dark Knight Returns age. You know what I mean? Like, we've had young Batman, we've had like late 30s, established dad Batman, and then we've had like super old, near death, shouldn't be walking upright Batman in a tank, fucking up mutants. We've never had like midlife crisis Batman. We've never had a Batman who's been Batman for like 15 years, drinks hard every day, has a weird morbid relationship with Alfred because they're the only two people that know how fucked up this life is. He's just like jaded. Imagine it's the Batman who's been doing this long enough to know for a fact that it doesn't work. You know, like every other Batman gets to a point where it's like, like no matter how many times I throw people in Arkham, they get back out and I don't kill people and all this stuff. But this is a Batman who's like, no, I have more than enough data to support that what I'm doing is not helping the city or the world or anything. I am completely useless. Crime still exists. My city is a fucking hellhole. This is a compulsion at this point. Like, if I stop now, you know, I have to prove to myself that I've wasted my entire life. So I just have to keep going and kind of hope it changes. That's a really unique Batman to me. And Ben Affleck is such a big, just hulking, like, piece of shit that he's perfect for it, you know? He just seems, like, fucked up and, like, sad, and he's, like, excited at the idea that he's gonna fight, like, an alien god because it gives him something to do for the first time in, like, 20 years. He doesn't even seem to mourn the people he's lost. He just, like, drinks and tries to get over it. He's just trash. And that's such a fun take on the character to me. It's different, you know? It's unique. He's a little bit goofy in, like, the Joss Whedon finished Justice League, and, like, I'm not as much of a fan there. But, like, in his chunks of BVS DOJ, the theatrical cut, I'm more of a fan of that than the Ultimate Edition, whatever. He's so interesting. And, like, you can't stop watching him. And, like, I would watch a whole Batman movie where he's Batman and Jeremy Irons is Alfred, and they never leave the cave. They just drink whiskey and talk about fucked up stuff that they've witnessed because their whole life is garbage. Like, that, to me, is like an interesting take on Batman, and that's why I love Ben Affleck. Number 2 is going to be Kevin Conroy. That should be not a surprise to anyone who's watching this list so far and knows how few Batmen are really left to talk about, but I love Kevin Conroy. I think most people do. It's kind of the cliche to talk about how he's like the best Batman, but he really is just one of the best. He wasn't my first Batman when I was a kid, but he was like my very close second. And I spent a much longer period of time with him as Batman. Most of us have. I mean, he's played Batman for more man hours than basically anyone else who's ever played the character. And he's a fantastic voice actor. He's very good. His Batman is like mutable. He was able to be Batman throughout like the original animated series and the weird little run they had at the end where they redesigned everybody, but it was basically the same show. He's popped up on the Superman show. He was in the Justice League. He's Justice League Unlimited. He's been in some of the animated adaptations. He was in the Arkham, silent video games. Like, he's the Batman for all seasons, and he's fantastic. I mean, his voice is like just the right timbre. He's able to sound different when he's Bruce and when he's Batman. He's able to be like more goofy or fun and like brooding depending on the nature of the thing. He's basically perfect. His batting average as Batman is unusually high considering how many episodes, how many video games, animated series, movies, commercials, whatever that he's voiced Batman in. None of those have dud performances. They're all pretty strong. Probably the strongest of those is his turn in The Mask of the Phantasm. That's like his peak as Batman. And there's just moments where he is so goddamn good. And finally, number 1.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Michael fucking Keaton. If you guys know me at all, this was not a surprise. Michael Keaton is my favorite person who has ever lived. If I told you I'd take a bullet for Val Kilmer, I would probably like leap off a bridge for Michael Keaton. If he was like, it's cool, you should jump off this bridge, I'd be like, okay, Michael Keaton, whatever you say. He's the Batman. When I was like 3 years old, I got a VHS copy of the Tim Burton Batman movie that he starred in, and it got stolen like out of our house at some point. So my mom bought another one and like wrote like in red ink on the actual little like label on the tape, like, this belongs to like Dominic Griffin. He's like 3. Why would you steal from a 3-year-old? Please return this tape to him if it goes missing. because it meant that much to me. I wore a fucking hole in that tape. I watched it all the goddamn time. I love that movie. I love Michael Keaton. That's why I love Batman. I mean, I read Batman comics as a kid. I had tons of them, like so many of them. But the reason I love Batman was because of that movie, because that fucking insignia was everywhere. It was such a pop culture staple. You couldn't escape it. I remember being a kid being so amped for Batman Returns and being so terrified that I wasn't going to get to see it because like the news media kept putting stories out about how like, this one's not for kids and like parents shouldn't take their children to see this weird fetishy art movie. And I remember my mom being kind of concerned and not knowing if she was really going to make me go see it because it looked kind of sexual and weird. She let me see it anyway because mom's really cool. And Batman Returns, to this day, I watch it every Christmas. It's one of my favorite movies ever made. And Michael Keaton is like the epitome, right, of people going, that guy shouldn't be Batman. Like, that's just his thing. Months ago, I posted a tweet. It was a picture that Vulture writer Hunter Harris had posted. Shout out to Hunter Harris. Of Oscar Isaac and Annette Bening on the set of that really terrible movie from the guy that created This Is Us. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm drawing a blank, and I'm not going to look it up because the movie's awful and no one should ever watch it. But I posted a picture of the two of them, and I was like, "Oh, this should be Bruce Wayne and Commissioner Gordon in the new Batman movie." And like, it went kind of viral, and like for like weeks on end, I would get tweets from people being like, "Oscar is too short to be Batman." Blah blah blah. This should be Batman Beyond or something or whatever. And I'd be like, "Shut up!" Like I said what I said. The reason why I think pretty much anyone could be Batman if you give them the chance is Michael Keaton. The dude's like super short. At the time, he was like only in weird 80s comedies. Everything about that guy was like, I would not make him Batman. Everything. But then you watch the movie and he's perfect. Okay? Like, when Kim Basinger is like walking around his mansion and stuff, and he's just like this weird dude who rolls up talking about like, oh, I bought that in Japan. Like, everything about that guy is Batman. He's an actor. You know, Batman's not real. You can make him your own through the magic of performance. That's how it works. And Michael Keaton made him his own at a really pivotal time in pop culture. And as far as I'm concerned, no one has ever done a good enough job to take it back from him. He's like the undisputed champion of Batman. And he did it in fucking 2 movies. 2 movies where he's like barely even the actual lead in those movies. Jack Nicholson steals most of that first movie, and Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito take turns stealing most of the second one. And the parts they don't steal, Christopher Walken steals. There's not a whole lot of real estate for Michael Keaton to actually be Batman in those 2 films. But in the time he has, he fucking owns it. He just rocks it. And he's just great. And I can't imagine anyone else topping this list. I love Batman. Batman means the world to me. I'm excited for a new Batman movie. I know people want, like, someone else to be Batman, or they don't want Bruce Wayne, they want a Batman Beyond movie, or they want a Batwoman movie. I just love Batman, and I don't care if they make a Batman movie every 6 months. I'm gonna fucking go see them. I don't care. I love Batman. It's one of the only things I'm not very good at being critical about. So that's my top 10. I would love to see your personal top 5s, top 10s in the comments below. If I left anybody out that's important to you, remind me who they are and why I should have included them. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Hit the little notification bell thing to get notified when I put out new videos. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thank you for hopefully not being one of the people that signed that Robert Pattinson petition. If you guys are responsible for coming between me and our bats, I'm very, very unhappy with you. Yeah, that's it. Have a great day, guys.